Good evening. My name is Roop Rai, and you're watching Ideas on Point. I just finished recording an amazing interview with Sam Nammoura, a prominent figure in Calgary's Syrian Arabic Muslim community. He is an entrepreneur, a fearless leader, and an advocate with focus on Arabic and Muslim community. Sam moved to Canada in 1997, but he left Syria in 1993. No, it didn't take him 4 years to travel to Canada from Syria. He made a pit stop in the US on the way. Please stay tuned to listen to his story. You don't want to miss it, especially if you're an immigrant to Canada. Let's please welcome Sam Nammoura. Welcome, Sam.
Oh, hi, Roop. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. I'm great. Thanks.
Before we start, I need to mention here that your actual name legally is Osama Nammoura.
That's right. Osama Nammoura, yes.
Osama Nammoura, which when you told me, my first reaction was like Osama bin Laden. So I think
Right.
that's probably a reaction you get from a lot of people. And is that the reason why you go by Sam?
Back in the 90s when I arrived in North America, even if when I tried to tell people my name is Osama, at that time in 1993, it was so hard for people to pronounce my name. So I remember when people would ask me, "What's your name?" and I'd say Osama, and they would say Usma. I said, "No, Osama." And so it was hard for them to pronounce it. And I started to use the word Sam, which is easy. Like anything in the Arabic, when it comes to Arabic people, if there's an S, goes by Sam, and if there's M, go by Mo. So that's why we see a lot of Middle Eastern, whether either Mo or Sam, and in between, I think most of us. But in 1997, really I had no choice per se but to force the name Sam after the incidents in New York at the World Trade Center, where the people associated the name Osama with the terrorist, with the Al Qaeda, with the terrorist group, and it was just like it was really hard for me, even because it was so hard because people do every time you say what's your name and you say Osama, you go Osama bin Laden, just like the way you respond, which is it was okay, but till after September 11, it was like definitely I insist on using a name Sam because I'm in the security business, and when I go to conduct business or meet the customers, especially offering the alarm system, it was really hard to make that connections. So the minute you say my name is Osama, the whole conversation moves completely in that directions, and then people feel like some people will show it like Osama, okay, so I don't want to go there, I don't want to whatever. Yeah. So but I am Osama bin Ahmed Nammoura. It's not bin Laden.
there's a bin in there.
Bin is son of. So my father's name Ahmed. I'm Osama. So Osama bin Ahmed. It's like Sam, son of Ahmed. Just like Osama bin Laden, it's Osama, son of Laden.
Okay. So, like I mentioned in my intro, you are of Syrian origin. And when I first got to know you, it was around 2015 when you had first started that Syrian refugee support group with Saima Jamal.
Yeah, and another group, yes.
Yeah, so that's around the time that I heard of you. I started to know of your work, and you've been excellent over the last few years supporting Syrian refugees coming into this country. How has that experience been, and how has it shaped you?
Roop, it was, I mean, I'm so sorry to say this, but this is how I feel. Regardless of the tragedy that took place in Syria, and I'm very familiar how tragic and how sad the situation been for the last 10 years. But for me, I think I was lucky from a different angle. I was lucky because I'm lucky because I have an opportunity to serve the two countries that I love the most. One being Syrian, and I love who I am and where I came from, and one being Canadian, and I'm so proud for my choice to become part of this great nation. So it was a unique opportunity to serve the two people that I really care and I really love. And from that passion, I mean, all that drive came in because I'm doing such a good thing for the Canada, and also I want Syrian to know how Canadian really feel, and how they, I would say, really understand the struggle of the Syrian people. And I want to turn that into a positive experience. So for me personally, because when I came to the state, as I said, in the 90s, those days is so important for me. Like I remember up till this minute, whomever did whatever some small little things for me back then. Like the guy who helped me to find a place to rent, the guy who helped me to find the first job, the guy who took me to the thrift store to buy the first furniture. So those little things, it's embedded in my head. And I'm grateful to these people. So whenever I go to the States, I go and visit these people. I say, oh, thank you for what you've done and all this stuff. And trust me, when I do this, some people cry, say, my goodness, you still remember? I said, of course, I do remember. So these incidents really, it's kind of burned in my mind, in my brain. And I want the same experience to those guys when they start to arrive in Canada, is I want them to have that positive experience, because I felt personally, and other people felt the same way, is this is an opportunity to create such a positive environment. So hopefully that's going to help this new community to settle faster, to connect faster, to feel a sense of belonging faster. And then their offspring will just do what I did. And that's how this Canadian story continued, and our legacy as a Canadian nation will just thrive and keep going on and on and on, from generation to generation to generation. So that was really the quote unquote the theme originally. And I met so many great people at the same time in 2015. They have the same drive, they have the same passion.
Yeah,
And this
I've
is
met your
how
team.
this is yeah, and this is how things started.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned the immigrant story, the experiences that you had when you came into this country. Like we talked before we started talking on air, is this platform was designed, TCCN, we designed it to talk about South Asian issues. And then I see you interviewing people in the Muslim and the Arabic community and dispelling a lot of myths and having very tough conversations. And I watch you, and this roles are reversed now. I wanted to interview you because I think the work that you are doing is path breaking, in my opinion, because these platforms don't exist. These
Right,
immigrant voices, these brown voices, I'd say, like they are not strong enough yet, and I think
right,
they need to get stronger. And I'm so glad that we're talking today, because we also need to like have these conversations amongst each other as
absolutely.
well, rather than you doing your work in the Arabic community and me doing my work in the Indian, Punjabi, Pakistani community, and we don't talk to each other. So that needs to change as well. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm so glad that you mentioned your immigrant experience, because that immigrant experience is same for every immigrant who
So
comes
true,
to
so
Canada.
true.
And
And I really, I wanna, if you, and thank you for highlighting the importance of us, so-called, I don't want to call it the brown, but the others, because it doesn't really matter whether you're brown or black or Asian or whatever. For some people, the majority of the people, uh, think about it, us and them. And so we need to bring the them into us, and we all become one, or at least have a sense of we all in the one boat, going in the same directions, and we have a common interest and common destinies, and stuff like that. Especially with as you said, with the platforms that we have. I think we're lucky we live in this era where we have these these tools to connect. I remember when I bought my first camcorders back in the 90s, it was such a huge, big with the tape, and it was just taking a 5 minute footage. It was just like a revolution back then. So I'm just thinking now, me and you are having these conversations. It's just an amazing technology. So we need to use this technology to bring the goods in human beings in general, and especially us as immigrants, because as you said, there's so much to learn from each other. And I think that's part of who we are. We always like to give. And I think this is what a thing that I really learned in Canada. And I think a lot of people share that with me, is this country gave us a lot of things. We say alhamdulillah, thanks to God for everything. In the end, we do believe in that. So, but Canada gave us so much, and it brought all the good things in us. And it took a lot of our worries and a lot of our concerns and a lot of our hardships. So when you in peace with your soul and with yourself, when you settle, when you save, when you feel like you're connected, when you enjoy the beauty of the world, when you enjoy the beauty of the sky and the beauty of the mountains, that's something that inside of you start to open up, and you start to become that softer human being. You start to feel the as we say in English, you start to smell the roses. So when you feel that, when you reach that high, subhanallah, as we say in Arabic, all of a sudden you have that drive. You want other people to feel the same. You want other people to be there, to follow, or to help somebody else. So all of a sudden, helping others become something like so dear and so important. You don't think about it. You just do it. Okay, I know this is going to help. I'm going to do it. I know this is going to make this person happy. I'm going to do it. You don't think about it. Oh, I'm doing this for a personal gain. I'm doing this for political gain. I'm not doing this just to get socially up or down. You do this because it's the right thing. It feels good, and you see the joy in the people's eyes. And I think really this is why it's important to tap into our stories, because each story is a unique story, and in the end, all our lives it's a series of small mini stories, and that we all need to. I would say it would be a good idea to learn from other people's stories and experiences.
We draw inspiration from each other.
So
We
true.
draw, yeah, like you said, we draw inspiration from each other. We draw strength from each other. So all of our stories combined bring us together as a community. Let's talk about your immigrant story. You came to the United States in 1993, and then you moved on to Canada in 1997, but you're originally from Syria. You've
Yeah.
spent many couple of decades or more in
In
Syria.
Syria,
Yeah.
I left Syria when I was 29 years old. So after my graduation, and I served in the government, because I was as an engineers back then. In all engineers, they were required to serve with the Syrian government for 5 years, because the education in Syria back then, until I think, is free. So the government provides free education for people, but for engineers. Because this is like a government in a high demand of that kind of people, that kind of qualifications. So automatically you have to serve the country for 5 years. So between graduation and serving the government 5 years, and then at the end of 1992, when I landed in 93 in the U.S., and 5 years there, and then in 97 came to Canada as a landed immigrant, and I got my citizenship in 2001, and I've been so happy that I'm Canadian. My goodness, it sounds like to yesterday. Wow.
So why Canada? Why not the US?
But at that time, I have two reasons. In '97, we had families. We have a families in Calgary, like related to my ex-wife, has a family here, and we want to reconnect because we couldn't reconnect in the States. So we have to find another place to connect again. So we chose Canada because I can apply for the landed immigrant, and I did the application for both of us. And because we have families in Calgary at that time, so we decided to come to Calgary. And right after, I had a business opportunity to start right away. After, my first job here in Calgary was I worked in the what is it, the place called? Domino's. So I worked in Domino's Pizza for like two months, and then I got into this security business with the family friends that he owns a company, and I joined that company, and then this is where everything started.
And now you own a security business called Armex Security.
Yeah.
Does your background in engineering help you with running this business?
my education, I would say my bachelor degrees and be an engineer. At one point, I thought I studied this electronics engineering, so I'm going to be working in that field. But really, what I didn't really know, education in general, it helped me so much to deal with life issues. So regardless whether I work as an engineer or not, and later on, I choose not to work as an engineer because I found this is a very limiting to what I want to do. I felt business is the vehicle. To have my own business is the vehicle that I would like to ride. But in a way, my education related to what I did, it just like what I did, it's like a technician job when I started. It's not an engineering job. But my engineering job helped me to plan the business, expand the business, increase the sales, manage the day-to-day stuff. So that's why I'm not really, as much as I like everybody to work in their own field, but I never limit myself to work as an engineer because I always said, why I want to work as an engineer if I can hire 10 engineers to work for me. Sorry to say that.
I've heard that very often, especially in the immigrant community.
Yes.
And that would include my own family members who are in business. So we are hiring people who are,
So,
uh,
Rube, when we come to this country, sorry to interrupt you, we especially us who, let's say, we spend the first 20, 25 years of our lives in different countries, and we're so eager to come and start a new life, new challenge. Because when you decide to leave your country and come to another country, this is not an easy decision. It's just like you feel it's like your soul, you're ripping your soul out of your chest cage. So it's a very, very hard decision. But reality is reality, and people do these, especially in these days, they like to migrate. So when you move and you leave 25 years of your life behind you and you reset the buttons all the way to zero. So really you come here to this country and there's a 25 years gap between you and the people who are here. So you have to do a lot of work and you have to do a lot of investment and you have to do a lot of pushing if you want to catch up with the crowd. And that's why when they say after 20 years of immigration, whenever you immigrate, after 20 years, everybody will be pretty much equal, which is fine. But for me, and I gotta tell this, I was, I was. So I just want to finish the sentence, the statement. When we come to this country, we are like a spring, pushed all the way to the base. And as soon as we land, whether in the States or in Canada or maybe in Europe, we just like a rocket. You just want to, that's why you see a lot of energy in the first 2, 3 years. And for business people, I always advise them, if you're smart and if you're lucky, find yourself an immigrant who just landed. And for 2, 3 years, don't count more than 2, 3 years because in 2, 3 years, he's going to be your main competition. So always be one step ahead.
or I'll use the language my father uses. They become lazy when they come to Canada after a few years.
Yeah. And honestly, from a business perspective, you can see, I mean, this is not really not being a bias or anything, but it's true. I mean, we always say in business, you need somebody who's hungry for work, hungry for money, hungry, have a plan, have it, whatever. I mean, so many times in the past, you have an install, you have a service call, you have a sales calls, and nothing really worse than, like 8, 9:30 calls, one of the employees saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sick." So what happened to sick? I just spoke last night. Everything was fine. How come you become sick overnight? So with the immigrant community, it's very rare to hear that. So,
Yeah, I often hear these things. I'm so glad we're talking about these things. See, this is what does not come out in mainstream.
yeah,
These are
no,
the
no,
conversations that are not had
that's
in
right.
mainstream because we keep hearing this rhetoric, but it's all behind the scenes. Like I keep hearing that, oh, it's easier to work with immigrants because immigrants always show up to work. And but it may not be the politically the best, the most correct thing to say, but it is being said. And these are the conversations that need to come to the fore, that people are
Absolutely.
having these conversations.
And people need to understand why an
Why
employer
exactly?
will hire somebody so-called fresh out of the boat. It's not like because of cheap labor. It's not because of he's being stingy, or not because he want to hire his own skin or his own people. Because when when the reality hits 9 o'clock in the morning, you want that job done. You want
Yes.
reliability. You want somebody who works. And if you say work 1 hour past 5, he's not gonna give you give you a lecture of excuse me 5, boom, finish, buddy. We have to finish work. Sorry, 5 o'clock. My time is done.
It's incredible. Like things you're saying is like coming. These are the things I've heard growing up in the Punjabi Sikh community in a business family, right? Like I've heard these things over and over again. Uh, but again, like I said, it might not be the most politically correct thing to
That's fine.
say, but you know what? People say people
Because we're not saying it to make other people look bad. We're saying it because it
because
really
that's the reality.
it's that's a reality, and
Yeah.
that's why when people come new to this country, I mean, let me and I'm really sorry to mention that, but I'm gonna say it. Like when I arrived here in the state, and I have $940 in my pocket.
Mhm.
That was my net worth, you know. So if I spend like $100 to buy something, for me that's like almost 10% of my net worth. That's why the spoon was so important for me. That's why the dish was so important for me. That's why the thrift store was important to me. So maybe I can go and buy this spoon, but that's so expensive to me versus when somebody say, here's the spoon, here's the dish, here's this, here's that. And that really all inspired in the end toward the Syrian Refugee Support Group and the Calgary Immigrant Support Society, because I think we all understand how important these steps. So going back to the beginning, in the first after 3 months being in America, I remember the first quote unquote American friends asked me to lend him money, and I did. But right at that moment, it hit me like, okay, I just came to the state, and I'm working, and I already saved money, and this person born raised in Chicago and asked me to borrow money. So with all, I'm not trying to make other people look bad, but the contrast of in 3 months you are able to work, save money, and buy your first car. Roop, when I bought my first car, I was in tears like this, and I bought three Chevy Citation. That it's a yellow one. I mean, go figure. Yellow Chevy Citation station wagon or Citation. It's not a station wagon. After not even 3 months being in the state, and I was in tears because for me, when I came from Syria, just to own a vehicle, it's like this is just a lifelong dream. It's just like and I felt like, oh my good God, what's happening here? So it's that's why we always say we are so lucky to be in this country. We're so privileged. We're so blessed. But unfortunately, over time, we forget all these little things that really make us so successful back in the days when you appreciate the penny, and then all of a sudden you become successful financially and other means. So sorry
And
if I'm rambling too much, but this is
no,
like you open up
I'm
very
loving
nice
this.
memories.
No, I'm loving this because, like I keep saying over and over again, these are the conversations that we need to be having. I my I'm actually curious to know, do you identify as a Syrian or as a Canadian or a mix of both? Because you've lived 30 years in Syria and you've lived, I think,
But the other 30 almost
almost 30
here,
years now? 20?
28 years, yeah.
Yeah, in Canada now.
Yeah.
So how do you identify yourself?
Well, to be honest with you, for the all the way up to 2000 till 2014, I would say 15, 14, 14, I was always referred to like I'm a Syrian Canadian. I'm so proud of being Syrian, and I'm so lucky and proud to be Canadian. But in 2015, when Canada got involved so much into invest in the Syrian newcomers, and they opened up the door for 25,000 at that time, and that was the opportunity for me to compare the two culture, the two countries, the two societies, and because I would say that experience in 2015 and beyond, honestly, it helped me to rediscover what the true meaning of being Canadian. So subconsciously, I start to feel like I am more Canadian than anything else. So for me, Canada became the center, and what's important, and the interest of Canada become is my interest, and this is where I feel everything else become second to Canada. But before that, it was just a split 50-50.
Mm, interesting. Coming back to your work since 2015, like you mentioned, there was 25,000 refugees that came in. Canada opened the borders. Yes, it was appreciated. It was really important work that you were doing, but at the same time, it was criticized as well. There were quotas in the Canadian community here, and it could be from immigrant community as well. People who have moved from other countries, they were vocally critical of that, bringing in refugees into this country. And there was a rhetoric about how refugees are freeloaders, they are a burden on the society. Why is Prime Minister Trudeau doing this? He's probably doing it to build his own vote
Right.
bank. Maybe his son will grow up 25 years from now and become the prime minister, and all these refugees and their families would grow up and vote for them. So there was a
Yeah.
lot of that negative rhetoric as well. How did you combat that, and what do you have to say about that?
The 2000. Thanks for that. Very important questions. In 2015, the whole political environment was so toxic, in my opinion, and because 2015 was a very vicious election campaign year, and all parties used everything possible to gain votes. And unfortunately, one party chose in my opinion, to create some kind of negative energies around the word refugees in general, and maybe associate Syrian refugees with all the stuff that happened in the or was taking place in Syria. And we know what happened in Syria, unfortunately, and which is unfortunate. But so it was very charged environment. Some people want to help, some people just don't want to help. So when I got involved, and I remember that vividly, I remember that in 2015, after I did my first, I think there was an article about the Syrian refugees in September, or just in September around that time. I did. It was at that time was a Metro Calgary. Yeah, I think it's called Metro. So I did the interview on some paper here in the city, and then I was at the CBC Calgary talking about refugees and why we need to do more for Syria, and that was a call by Simon Jamal. This is how really everything started. Maybe I can talk about it after. But when I start being public about the need to do more for Syrian refugees, literally, because I said, if you can help, this is my phone number. And I put my number and I put it on CBC. Because my concern was just, I want to connect to those people who want to help and connect with those people who needed help. And I was shocked to receive my first text on my phone, and still have it, accusing me that I'm really promoting terrorism. And I'm going to be, and this lady who sent me this text, she said, I will hold you, Sam, responsible for every rape these refugees going to do, and for every terrorist they're going to do. You are promoting terrorism, you're promoting these groups. And she was just giving me a barrage of accusations against refugees. So definitely there was a lot of skepticism. As I said, there's a portion of the Canadian society was so concerned about that, and they were just like, skeptics. But I have to say this, right after October 18, 19, when the election is over, that rhetoric completely stopped. And all of a sudden, all Canadians came together, whether blue or red or orange or green. It doesn't really matter. I felt like the whole city of Calgary came really together. I never heard anything since the election was over, except just people really want to help.
What year did you say? Since when?
2015, like in October 19, 2015. The election is over, and the party. I think that was when the Liberal came to govern the country. But as soon as the election was over, I stopped hearing these negative messages from all sides. It's not like even the opposition, whatever. It's you never really felt like this is an issue like it was during the election. But I think during the election,
Yeah.
some people try to use it and push that tactics of the fear of others. These are different than us. These are not really our type of immigrant and refugees that we want. We want if you are a refugee, if you are my kind of refugees, you are welcome. But you are a different kind of refugees, I don't want you. So
I would actually like you to dispel this myth as well. This rhetoric, I do hear it still, that refugees are freeloaders, that they're getting free money, they're not working, they're just they have large families, and they're just living off our system. How true is that? And you said you don't hear that anymore, but let me tell you that I do hear that. So how do you address that?
okay. Well, I didn't say I did not hear this anymore on the freeloader stuff, but I did not hear. I stopped hearing anything criticizing refugees as being part of or they are here to spread
The rape.
religion
Yeah.
or to spread terrorism or here to rape women or that kind of stuff. But the freeloaders and hoarders and all the stuff definitely are here. They are not taxpayers. They're this and that.
Mhm.
I heard it in the past, and I'm hearing it now more because there is, whether we like it or not, when it comes to, and I really think this issue needs to be discussed, maybe in complete separate
Let's do that.
show,
Let's do that. Let's do
because
that.
such an important
Okay.
topic, and we don't want to just to brush it like that. But let's put it that way. It's very wrong to say refugees, they are freeloaders, they come here and they do this, because I can name tens and maybe hundreds of people that I know came not even 5 years ago as a refugees, as a government sponsored refugees. They own businesses and they own houses and they pay taxes and they have 2 kids and they have 2 cars and they have better life than somebody who born raised in this country and they came as a refugees.
And
Also, on the other hand,
and it's also because they worked hard and they
that's right.
had that fire that you mentioned earlier, that
Right.
hunger.
So, and also I know people who came here 5 years ago, they have kids, they did not want to learn English, they did not want to work, they did not want to be part of the societies. So this kind of people exist, and that people exist. The question is, what is our role as a society to do to speed up the process of moving somebody from being just quote unquote a refugees into a full-fledged Canadian citizen, or let's use the term that people like, from full-fledged taxpayer, if that's gonna make people feel better.
I think we need a part 2 of this conversation. There is so much that I still want to talk to you about, and it's already been over 30 minutes, I think, that we've been talking. I have some questions written down here where I want to ask you about your work
Sure.
that you're currently doing in the Arabic and the Muslim community, all the myths that you're dispelling on a regular basis. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the conversations that you're having on your channel, on your Facebook live platform. What are those conversations about, etc., etc. There's so much more, but it has been so lovely speaking to you. I've been really, I would say this is one of my most favorite interviews I've done, and I've got to connect with you on many issues that I think are common between our communities, and I think that is really, really endearing to me as a daughter of an immigrant and, well, a woman of color. So thank you so much for making the time.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
And we'll talk again for sure. We have
Inshallah, we will.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everything you're doing, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. As I said, I have so much insight to share and to talk and to really to bring up to the surface, because I put it this way: these are the problems that we're facing, and it's not going to go away on its own unless we get involved and we fix it ourselves. Nobody else is going to come and fix it for us.
Oh, absolutely, and talk about them too.
Right.
Like, let's start talking, and then let's work out a plan on how to fix it. Yeah. We need to make a better world for our children. And
And
you
trust
are.
me, talking is the hardest part because the minute I open my mouth, oh my goodness. So let's talk.
Oh, yeah.
Let's keep it rolling. Thank you, Roops.
I always say now, I will not run for political office ever again. Now I can say whatever I want.
Good for you.
All right. Take care. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks, Roops. Bye.